You ever notice how people claim they're over someone until the room goes quiet, until a name slips out in a conversation, and suddenly their whole body changes? That's the thing about emotions. They don't vanish, they just hide. You think they've moved on, but deep down, they're still fighting ghosts. They're still wrestling with the version of you they can't forget, can't replace, can't forgive. They tell their friends they're fine. They even start believing it until something small, one memory, one scent, one song, sets the whole thing on fire again. It's funny, isn't it? How people scream that they don't care, yet their voices shake when they say it. How they claim they've moved on, but every word still circles back to you. Like a moth to a flame it can't resist. The louder they deny, the deeper they still care. You can see it in their eyes. Those trembling windows that betray the calm facade they're trying to wear. You can hear it in their tone. That slight hesitation before the insult, that softening right before the storm. People think anger hides love, but it doesn't. It exposes it in the most chaotic way imaginable. It's the sound of affection trying to escape through locked doors. When someone fights about you, even in your absence, you've already won something priceless. You've taken space in their mind, rent, free, turning every quiet corner into a battlefield of thoughts. They argue because silence with your name in it feels too heavy. They throw your name into the fire just to feel something, anything, to remind themselves you still exist in their world, even if through flames. And isn't that beautiful in a twisted way? To be both the poison and the cure in someone's story. To be the storm they secretly wish would return, even as they complain about the rain. People don't argue over those they've forgotten. They argue over ghosts that still touch their hearts. They talk about you because your memory keeps clawing through their comfort, whispering in moments they wish were peaceful. You are not gone. You're haunting them through their own voice, through every insult that carries your name, through every sigh they release after pretending not to care. You're not a wound anymore. You're the scar they can't stop touching. Every fight about you is another attempt to stitch up what they destroyed. But deep down, they know it can't be fixed by denial. You see, the heart doesn't understand logic. It doesn't care about what's over or what should be. It only knows connection, and when that's broken, it starts to panic. It picks fights to stay alive. It brings your name up in conversations that should have ended months ago. It drags you back into the light when everything else fades to gray. Because deep inside, that chaos, that fire, that tension, it's all proof they still feel. And people will do anything to feel again. Even if it means reopening old wounds, just to remember how it felt to bleed for something real. They'll convince themselves they're angry at you, but what they're truly angry at is themselves, for still caring, for still missing you, for still hearing your voice when they close their eyes. They'll argue about your flaws, but what they're really fighting are their own regrets. Every harsh word they spit carries guilt hiding in its shadow. Every insult has a heartbeat behind it. They don't hate you. They hate that you still have power over them. And the irony, you didn't even ask for it. You earned it by being unforgettable, by being real in a world where most people only play pretend. So let them fight. Let them whisper. Let them throw your name around like it means nothing, because it means everything. You see, when someone fights about you, they're not trying to erase you. They're trying to cope with the fact that they can't. You've become part of their narrative, stitched into their chaos. Even their anger bends to your gravity, and that's something no goodbye can undo. You live there now, inside their noise, inside their thoughts. A ghost that won't stop reminding them what truth felt like. Arguments are strange little creatures, aren't they? Dressed up as fury, fueled by pride. But underneath all that smoke, there's love choking on its own denial. Every word hurled in anger is just affection that lost its direction. When people fight about you, they're not just angry. They're trying to rewrite the story so they don't have to admit they still care. That's the secret no one says out loud. Anger is love's final disguise. It's what happens when someone feels too much and can't handle the weight of it anymore. It's ironic how emotions twist themselves into something ugly when they're ignored. That warmth, that tenderness, it doesn't disappear. It mutates. It becomes jealousy, bitterness, sarcasm. A chemical reaction of the heart that no one understands but everyone feels. They say cruel things, slam doors, raise voices, all in the name of moving on. But listen closely. It's never about forgetting you. It's about surviving you. The fight isn't against you. It's against the parts of themselves that still reach for you in the dark. People think love dies when relationships break. No, it doesn't die. It changes form. It becomes something unstable, volatile, explosive. It hides in words meant to hurt, in messages left unsent, in conversations that turn into shouting matches. Every insult is a confession wrapped in barbed wire. They might say they hate you, but the tremor in their voice tells another story. Hate is just love that's been betrayed too many times and doesn't know where to go anymore. And that's why arguments can be so revealing. Because anger doesn't lie. It's raw, it's real. It's unfiltered emotion with nowhere to hide. When they bring your name up again and again, when they can't stop dissecting what you did or didn't do, it's not closure they're after. It's connection. They miss the sound of their own heart racing when you were near. The unpredictability of what you'd say next. The chaos that felt more alive than the peace they have now. So they pick fights, not with you, but with the silence you left behind. You'd be surprised how much love hides in hate, how much longing is buried under rage. That's the real tragedy of human emotion. We're taught to express pain through destruction instead of honesty. Instead of saying, "I miss you," they say, "You ruined everything." Instead of admitting, "You still matter," they mutter, "I'm better without you." Lies born out of fear. Because caring makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability feels like weakness in a world obsessed with control. So they armor themselves with attitude, with arguments, with apathy. But deep down, the fire still burns. You can tell by how they talk about you, how they can't seem to let your name die quietly, how even when they try to bury your memory, it keeps clawing back to the surface. They fight because that's the only language left between you. Anger gives them permission to feel without admitting what they feel. They'd rather destroy the connection than confess they still need it. It's easier to argue than to surrender. And maybe that's the real heartbreak of it all. Not that they stopped loving you, but that they couldn't face how much they still do. So they turn affection into ammunition. They rewrite love as war because it's safer that way. Safer to scream than to tremble. Safer to curse your name than to whisper it softly like a prayer. But every explosion leaves behind a truth. If you didn't matter, there'd be silence. If you weren't still in their heart, your name wouldn't echo through their chaos. So don't be fooled by the noise. Don't believe the sharp edges of their words. That rage is a cover-up for something softer, something fragile, something still breathing underneath. They're not angry because you're gone. They're angry because you still exist somewhere they can't reach, because your absence still feels louder than your presence ever did. Because even after everything, some part of them still waits for you in every argument, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the shouting will summon you back. Pride is such a clever little liar. It dresses itself up as strength, as control, as dignity, but really it's just fear wearing a suit. When pride replaces honesty, hearts start to rot in silence. Two people can stand in the same room, both desperate to speak, both drowning in words they'll never say, and still pretend everything's fine. That's the illusion pride creates. It convinces you that silence is power, when it's actually poison. You can almost hear it, the ticking clock between two hearts, waiting for the other to break first. Nobody wants to look weak, so they both lose. You know what's truly tragic? Watching people destroy something real just to protect their ego. They'll rewrite the story in their head until they become the victim, and you become the villain. They'll twist the truth just enough to make their silence feel justified. It's not that they don't care. It's that caring requires surrender, and surrender terrifies them. They'll die before they admit they miss you, because saying that out loud would mean admitting they were wrong, admitting that they let something pure slip through their hands. And pride doesn't allow that. Pride prefers the illusion of control over the truth of vulnerability. The world teaches people to hide behind their masks, smile in public, break in private, pretend you're unbothered, even when your chest is caving in from the weight of all the things you left unsaid. Pride tells you to stay quiet. That silence is strength. But deep down, silence screams. It eats away at you until every quiet moment becomes unbearable. It replaces laughter with memories, warmth with regret. It's funny, isn't it? How silence can be so loud when you're trying to forget someone who meant everything. And yet, we cling to it, because pride feels safer than honesty. It gives you something to hold on to when everything else is slipping away. You tell yourself you don't care over and over until maybe one day you'll believe it. But you never really do. You just get better at pretending. You scroll past their name. You ignore the urge to check on them. You act like they don't exist. And still they do. Every word, every laugh, every memory stays trapped inside you, unspoken, festering behind that carefully built wall. It's strange how silence can connect two people just as powerfully as words once did. They stop talking, but they still feel each other. They still sense when the other is hurting. That invisible thread doesn't break. It just tightens, strangling both sides. Pride calls it strength, but it's really self-destruction in disguise. You keep waiting for the other to break, but they're waiting too. Both of you prisoners of your own ego, pacing the same emotional cell, pretending that chains don't exist. And here's the cruel part. Time doesn't heal pride. It feeds it. The longer you stay silent, the harder it becomes to speak. The words rot in your throat until they're unrecognizable. What was once love turns into resentment, then into indifference, or at least the illusion of it. You convince yourself that the feeling's gone, but deep down you know. It's still there, buried under layers of pride, guilt, and stubbornness. You didn't stop caring, you just stopped trying. They'll think of you late at night, when the mask slips and the truth creeps in. They'll remember how easy it was to talk to you, how real it felt, how rare it was to be understood without pretending. And then pride whispers again. Don't reach out. Don't look weak. Don't let them know they still matter. So they roll over, close their eyes, and let the silence win once more. That's how hearts die, not from hate, but from hesitation. From all the times we wanted to speak but didn't. From all the moments we chose ego over honesty. From all the times we mistook distance for dignity. Pride builds walls, but love always wanted bridges. And yet, the world applauds the ones who never break, who never bend, who never speak first. But the truth, those are the ones who suffer the longest. Because when pride replaces honesty, you don't protect yourself. You bury yourself alive in the silence you created. It's always the ones who fight the hardest who feel the most. The ones who shout, slam doors, and throw words like knives. They're the ones with hearts too full to hold it all in. You see, when someone doesn't care, they go quiet. But when they do, oh, they rage, they cry. They argue with ghosts in their mind. Love never walks out peacefully. It leaves claw marks on the walls. People think arguments mean the end, but no, they're proof of life. Proof that something still burns underneath all that anger. The fight isn't the problem. The silence after it is. You can tell how much someone loves you by how deeply they get hurt by you. Indifference is cold, clean, empty. But real love, it's messy. It screams, it breaks things, it demands to be felt. When someone fights you, they're fighting for something they don't want to lose. They just don't know how to say it anymore. They call you names instead of saying, "Please stay." They raise their voice instead of admitting, "You matter to me." They throw their pain at you because it's the only way they know how to show you that you still have power over them. People think love is soft, sweet, easy. But the truth, love is raw. It's chaos with a heartbeat. It's caring so much that it hurts to hold it in. When two people care too much, the line between love and destruction becomes paper thin. Every argument becomes a desperate attempt to be understood. Every harsh word a plea to be seen. They don't want to hurt each other. They just want to be heard. But in the noise, in the fire, they forget they're both on the same side. When emotions run that deep, words become weapons. You start aiming to protect yourself, not realizing you're hitting the one you wanted to protect the most. You start saying things you don't mean, just to shield the parts of you that still bleed for them. But underneath every cruel word, there's still a trace of love, trembling and terrified. You can feel it when their voice cracks mid-argument. When they pause just a second too long before saying something unforgivable. That's the truth trying to escape. The part of them that still wishes they could love you without all the pain. They'll walk away pretending it's over, but their heart won't listen. It'll replay every word, every look, every silence. They'll think of what they should have said, what they could have done differently, and that's when they'll realize the fight wasn't about hate, it was about fear. Fear of losing something real. Fear of being the only one still holding on. Fear of being vulnerable in a world that punishes those who care too deeply. And isn't it tragic how love can twist itself into something unrecognizable? Two people trying to protect each other from pain end up causing more of it. Both trying to be strong end up breaking together. Both trying to win the argument, but losing the connection that once made everything worth it. You don't fight that hard for someone who means nothing. You fight that hard for the one who means everything. Every scream, every tear, every slammed door, it's all proof that love is still alive, just buried under layers of confusion and pride. It's like fire. It can warm you or destroy you, depending on how you handle it. Most people don't realize that the fire isn't the enemy. The problem is forgetting that it once gave you light. They'll remember the fight long after it's over. Not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. The heart doesn't catalog words. It remembers intensity. The way the air felt heavy with emotion. The way the world went quiet after the shouting stopped. They'll lie awake wondering if you're thinking of them too, if you felt that same H after the storm. They'll convince themselves they don't care, but their mind will betray them every time your name crosses their thoughts. The ones who fight the hardest are the ones who love the deepest. They're not broken, they're just human. Humans with hearts that care too much, with souls that don't know how to let go quietly, because love like that doesn't die in silence. It burns, it screams, it breaks and rebuilds itself over and over again. It's not weakness, it's not madness, it's truth. The kind of truth that can't be hidden behind calm faces or quiet words. The kind of truth that fights because it still believes, deep down. There's something worth saving. You don't haunt them with your presence. You haunt them with your absence. That's the part they never see coming. When you're gone, truly gone, not begging, not reaching, not checking in, your silence becomes louder than anything you could ever say. People expect noise when someone leaves. They expect anger, tears, explanations. But when you vanish without a sound, it messes with their head. They start hearing you in their thoughts, seeing you in the faces of strangers, feeling you in the quiet moments they can't escape. You become a ghost with a pulse that lives inside their guilt. They'll act like they don't care, like your absence means nothing. But behind that mask, they'll check their phone more than they used to. They'll scroll through old messages, convincing themselves they're just curious. They'll replay old memories like movies they swore they hated. They'll tell themselves it's over, but the mind doesn't delete, it replays, it obsesses, it wonders, it rewrites. Your absence becomes their mirror, reflecting everything they tried to ignore while you were there. You don't need to remind them of your worth. They'll feel it every time they reach for someone else and find no spark, no warmth, no chaos like yours. You see, presence is comforting, but absence, that's haunting. When you were there, they took you for granted. You were too accessible, too consistent, too forgiving. They thought you'd always be around, waiting, understanding, staying. Then one day the silence hit. No reply, no trace. Just emptiness where your energy used to be. And that's when they finally noticed what they lost. Because people only realize the weight of your presence when they have to live without it. They only understand your love when they're left to feel its echo instead. You can almost picture it. The late nights when they reach for their phone, but stop themselves. The moments when they hear a song and suddenly freeze because it reminds them of you. The way their chest tightens when someone mentions your name casually, like you weren't the center of their storm once. That's haunting. Not because you're gone, but because a part of you still lingers, stitched into their habits, hidden in the spaces between their thoughts. You became a part of their rhythm, and now they stumble through silence, trying to find their beat again. They'll try to replace you. Oh, they'll try. Someone new will come along, someone easier, quieter, maybe even kinder. And for a while, they'll convince themselves it's working. But then, in the middle of a conversation, they'll realize the new person doesn't make them feel the same. The laughter feels forced, the connection feels dull, and the spark. They can't find it. Because the truth is, your energy isn't something they can duplicate. It's one of a kind. You're one of a kind. And no matter how hard they try to move on, your shadow follows them. Absence doesn't mean you lost. It means you've shifted power. You're not the one waiting anymore. They are. You're not the one checking if they've changed. They're the ones wondering if you still think about them. They'll remember the last thing you said, the last look you gave, the way you walked away without hesitation. That image burns in their memory because it represents something they didn't expect. Strength. The kind of strength they never thought you had. The kind that says, I loved you, but I love my peace more. And that's what haunts them the most. The realization that you could let go, that you didn't need to scream or explain or beg to be understood. You just left, calmly, quietly, completely. That's the type of silence that keeps people up at night, wondering if you ever cared at all, or if they were just a temporary chapter in your story. But deep down, they know. They know you cared. They know you gave everything until there was nothing left to give. And that's what makes your absence so powerful. It's filled with everything they destroyed. You haunt them not because you're gone, but because you were real. In a world full of temporary people, you were permanent. You left fingerprints on their soul, marks that time can't erase. And no matter how much they try to act unaffected, your absence will always whisper in their ear. Every new face they meet will remind them of what they lost. Every quiet night will echo with what they ignored. You don't need to chase them. You already live inside the space they can't escape, their memory. Because that's where haunting begins. Not in your presence, but in the silence you leave behind. Funny thing about identity, people spend their whole lives trying to find it in mirrors made by others. They wear masks that fit the crowd, they change colors to match the room, and they call that being real. But deep down, they know something's missing. It's not that they don't know who they are. It's that they've forgotten who they were before the world told them who to be. See, the system loves a person who's lost, because lost people are easy to lead, easy to sell, too easy to break. But when you start remembering your own reflection, the one that isn't built from opinions or approval, things start to shake. The world gets nervous when someone stops pretending. Because once you know who you are, no one can tell you what you're worth. They want you confused. That's the whole trick. Keep you guessing about who you are, what you should be, where you belong. Make you chase answers in mirrors that were never meant to show your face. The world doesn't need you to know yourself. It needs you to need it. Because when you don't know who you are, you'll buy anything, believe anything, follow anyone who sounds certain enough. Confusion is the oldest currency. They use it to keep you spending your life trying to fill a hole they dug in your mind. And the funny part, you think you're making choices, but most of them were already made for you long before you even started thinking. From the moment you were born, they started writing your name in ink that wasn't yours, telling you what's normal, what's success, what's failure, what's love, what's wrong. Every voice, every ad, every screen whispering the same thing. Be more, but not too much. Stand out, but don't step out of line. It's genius, really. They build a maze and call it freedom. They tell you to find yourself while selling you the directions. And you keep walking in circles, thinking the exit's just a little further if you work harder, if you buy more, if you try to fit one more expectation. You're not lost. You're trapped in a design that was never meant to set you free. You can see it everywhere. People living like ghosts in bodies they don't even recognize. Smiling in photos, dying in silence. Acting like everything's fine when deep down, something's rotting. The system loves that. It feeds on your pretending. The moment you try to look deeper, to peel back the layers, it distracts you, throws noise your way, scrolls, likes, trends, opinions. Keeps your mind so busy you forget to feel. Because stillness is dangerous. In the quiet, truth starts to whisper, and they can't afford for you to hear that voice. There's power in confusion, just not yours. They profit off your hesitation, your self-doubt, your constant need for approval. You buy what they tell you will make you whole. You post what they say will make you seen. You chase what they define as happiness. All the while, you're working harder to live someone else's dream, while yours collects dust in the back of your mind. You think you're free because you can choose between 1,000 distractions. But none of them point toward you. They point away. Away from your core, your truth, your purpose. Because a person who knows who they are can't be sold, can't be controlled, can't be owned. The irony is, the more you chase identity, the further you get from it. Because who you are isn't something you find. It's something you remember. The real you has always been there, underneath the noise, beneath the masks, buried under layers of conditioning. But you've been trained to look everywhere except inward. They say look at the influencers, the idols, the trends. Follow them, copy them, become them. Because the moment you start remembering, the whole game falls apart. The power shifts, the control slips, and they can't have that. Ever notice how people who truly know themselves make others uncomfortable? They don't play by the rules. They don't need validation. They don't flinch when the world disagrees. Because once you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop begging for seats at tables you could flip over with one hand. That kind of self-awareness is terrifying to a system built on insecurity. It's like holding a mirror up to the lie, and no one likes what they see. You want to know why confusion feels so heavy? Because it's not natural. You were never meant to doubt your own voice. You were born with clarity, but they taught you to question it. Every ad, every comparison, every failure drilled one message into your head. You're not enough. And you believed it. That belief became a cage. And now every thought that tries to escape gets pulled back in. But here's the thing. They can't take your identity. They can only convince you to forget it. They'll tell you who to be, and they'll call it advice. They'll label you when you don't fit, and they'll call it diagnosis. They'll keep you chasing acceptance so you never stop to realize. You were already complete before they told you otherwise. Confusion isn't a flaw, it's a weapon used against you. They create the storm, then sell you the umbrella. They break your sense of self, then offer to fix it for a price. That's the cycle. Keep you lost, then charge you for the map. The truth is, the second you stop running from yourself, everything they built to trap you starts to crumble. When you stop needing their approval, you become dangerous. Because they can't scare you with rejection. when you already know who you are. They can't control you with money when you no longer measure worth in numbers. They can't manipulate you with fear when you've seen the game for what it is. They lose the leash the moment you wake up. The world doesn't fear the loud. It fears the aware. The ones who can look in the mirror and see past the reflection. The ones who've stopped apologizing for being different. The ones who know their name doesn't need a label. Their worth doesn't need a price tag. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break patterns. But to do that, you have to remember what they tried to make you forget. Who you are beneath everything they told you to be. It's strange, isn't it? How people keep saying they're trying to find themselves, like they're a missing wallet or a lost key, as if who they are is hiding somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered. But that's the lie. They made you believe you were lost, so they could sell you directions. Identity isn't something you find. It's something you remember. You were born with it. But the world covered it up layer by layer, lie by lie, until you couldn't recognize your own reflection anymore. You've been walking around carrying the truth the whole time, just buried beneath all the noise they fed you. You ever notice how children know who they are before anyone tells them? They laugh without needing permission. They cry without shame. They dream without boundaries. That's what real identity looks like. Raw, honest, untouched. But then the world gets its hands on them, starts whispering rules. Act like this. Talk like that. Don't do that. People will think you're weird. Every correction, every label, every judgment slowly erases the original design. Until one day, they're not living. They're performing. They become characters in someone else's script, trying to please an audience that never claps loud enough. And that's the tragedy of it all. You start believing that identity is something earned, something you prove, something you achieve after you've fit enough molds, met enough standards, and silenced enough of yourself. But you can't prove what already is. You can't earn what you were born with. The real you doesn't need validation. It needs permission to exist. But that's what they took from you. They didn't steal your identity. They convinced you to hide it. They told you to play small, to blend in, to be normal. Because normal is predictable, and predictable is easy to control. The world's greatest fear is a person who remembers themselves. Because when you do, you stop playing their game. You stop buying things to fill a void that never existed. You stop begging for acceptance from people who don't even accept themselves. You stop waiting for someone to tell you you're enough, because you finally realize you always were. And that's when the cracks start to show. The illusions begin to break. Because everything they've built relies on your forgetfulness. The moment you remember, you become untouchable. See, remembering isn't always peaceful. It's painful. Because to remember who you are, you have to strip away who you've been pretending to be. You have to face the parts of you that were silenced, shamed, rejected. The ones you buried just to be liked, just to be accepted. But here's the truth. Those pieces weren't your weakness. They were your power. You just learned to fear them because they didn't fit into the world's design. They called you too emotional, too intense, too different. But those too much parts, that's where your fire lives. That's where your purpose breathes. You don't find yourself by adding more. You remember yourself by subtracting what's not real. Every false identity, every fake smile, every borrowed dream. You peel it away until all that's left is what was always there. That's why so many people never do it. Because remembering takes courage. It takes facing the truth that maybe your whole life was built on someone else's idea of who you should be. And the moment that truth hits, you can't go back to pretending. You can't unsee it. You either keep playing the role, or you burn the script. The ones who remember don't fit anywhere, and that's the beauty of it. They walk differently. They talk differently. There's something in their eyes. Clarity, calm, danger. Because they're no longer controlled by fear or doubt. They've seen the illusion and walked through it. People don't understand them, so they label them as arrogant or crazy. But that's just projection. The world calls you crazy when you refuse to stay asleep. You want to know how you start remembering. Stop running from silence. That's where the truth hides. Not in the noise, not in the praise, not in the chaos. Just silence. Because when everything gets quiet, all the fake layers start to fall away. You'll hear your real voice again. The one that's been whispering under the noise all this time. The one that doesn't need followers, doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation. Just space. Space to exist, space to breathe, space to be. The sad thing is, most people will never get there. They'll keep looking outward, chasing things that were never meant to fill the space inside. They'll keep asking the world for permission to be themselves, waiting for a sign that will never come. Because remembering doesn't come from outside approval. It comes from the moment you decide to stop pretending. The second you realize you don't need to find anything because you were never lost. You were just buried under a lifetime of other people's expectations. You were never meant to be a copy, never meant to blend in. You were meant to be a living contradiction, loud and quiet, kind and fierce, broken and unbreakable. The ones who remember that are rare, and that's why they shine differently. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And in a world built on imitation, nothing is more dangerous than someone who remembers exactly who they are. You ever notice how masks are easier to wear than faces? People slip them on every morning without thinking. Smile here, nod there, agree when they disagree, laugh when they're dying inside. They wear so many masks they forget which one hides the real them. But the problem with masks is, after a while, they start to fuse with your skin. You wear them for so long that, when you finally try to take them off, it hurts. You bleed. And that's why most people never do it. They'd rather keep pretending than face the pain of remembering who they were before the world told them to act. See, pretending is safe. It's predictable. You fit in, you get praised, you belong. But deep down, you know it's fake. You know every compliment, every handshake, every "you're doing great" isn't meant for you. It's meant for the version you built to survive. And that version, it's hollow, it's fragile. One wrong move, one honest moment, and it all cracks. You can feel it sometimes, can't you? That pressure behind your smile, that tightness in your chest, when you're around people who only know your mask. You want to scream to tell them, "This isn't me." But you don't. Because what if they don't like the real you? What if they walk away? So you stay silent, and the silence eats you alive. The world rewards actors, not truth tellers. It loves performance, not honesty. You show your pain, they call you weak. You show your strength, they call you arrogant. You can't win, because the game was never built for truth. That's the joke. They want you to blend in, because blending in keeps you manageable. As long as you wear the mask, you'll keep chasing approval. And as long as you're chasing approval, you'll never realize you were born with everything you've been begging for. The mask starts small. A lie here. A little pretending there. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you're just playing along. But before you know it, you're knee deep in a character you don't even like. You adjust your tone, your walk, your words, all to match what people expect from you. And then, one day, you catch yourself in the mirror and can't recognize the reflection. That's when it hits you. The scariest part isn't that you lost yourself. It's that you handed yourself over willingly. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want. But real freedom, it's being yourself in a world that profits from your pretending. It's walking into a room and not needing to shrink. It's saying what you mean without checking if it's too much. It's standing alone and not flinching when the silence gets loud. That's freedom, and it scares the hell out of people. Because when you stop wearing the mask, you remind everyone still wearing theirs that they're living a lie. The moment you start being real, the crowd disappears. Funny how that works. People love you when you're comfortable, predictable, easy to digest. But the moment you show them your truth, the raw, unfiltered, messy parts, they scatter. They can't handle it, because truth exposes their own pretending. They'll call you cold, rude, different, too intense. But that's not an insult. It's a confession. What they're really saying is, "You're everything I wish I had the courage to be." Pretending feels safe, but it's expensive. Every day you wear that mask, you pay with a little more of your soul. You trade authenticity for acceptance, and the rate only gets higher. That's why people feel so empty, even when everything looks perfect. They've spent their lives performing roles they never auditioned for. They've built empires on false foundations. And one day, all it takes is a small crack, a failure, a heartbreak, a quiet moment, and the whole act collapses. You know what's funny? When you finally take off the mask, you realize no one was really looking anyway. Everyone's too busy wearing their own to notice yours. All that effort to impress, all that fear of rejection, It was all an illusion. The people who truly matter won't need you to perform. They'll recognize you without the costume. Because their eyes aren't trained by the world, they're trained by truth. The world will tell you to be yourself, but punish you when you actually do. That's why you have to stop waiting for permission. Because no one's going to come and say, "All right, now it's safe to be real." It'll never be safe. Authenticity has always been rebellion. But that's where your power lies, in the danger of it. Every mask you drop makes you harder to control. Every truth you speak makes the lie weaker. Every time you choose to show up as yourself, you break another chain the world built to keep you small. They'll call you different, and they'll be right. Because realness is rare now. It's a currency most people can't afford. But the ones who carry it, they shine differently. They don't need to announce it. They don't need applause. They just exist. And that's enough to shake the whole room. Because when you finally stop pretending, you don't just free yourself. You start to remind others what it looks like to live without fear. And once that happens, the masks start falling one by one. And suddenly the world doesn't look so fake anymore. You ever notice how the world loves noise? Everyone's running, chasing, scrolling, talking, but almost no one's listening. No one's still. Because silence is dangerous. In silence, truth starts to whisper. And the last thing they want is for you to hear it. That's why they keep you moving, keep you busy, keep your head filled with static. The second you slow down, you might start to notice the chains. You might start asking questions. You might start seeing. And once you see, you can't unsee. Movement without direction, that's the trick. They tell you to keep going, keep grinding, keep hustling. Like that's the answer. But they never tell you where all that motion leads. Because it's not supposed to lead anywhere. It's supposed to exhaust you. Wear you down until you don't have the energy to think. They disguise chaos as ambition, distraction as purpose. They tell you to keep moving, so you won't notice you're running in circles. That's how they trap you, with noise. Not bars, not walls, noise. You've seen them. The ones who can't sit still for more than a minute. Always checking their phone, refreshing, posting, reacting. They think they're connected, but they're addicted. They mistake attention for validation, likes for love, motion for meaning. They've forgotten how to just be. And the worst part, they don't even realize it. They think they're living, but really, they're running from silence. Because silence feels like confrontation. It forces them to meet themselves, and most people are terrified of that meeting. The funny part is, the world calls that kind of chaos normal. They applaud it. You're busy. Good. You're stressed. You must be working hard. You're burnt out. That's success. They make exhaustion look noble. They make peace look lazy. So, you keep moving, keep talking, keep producing, thinking one day you'll reach a place where the noise stops on its own. But it never does. The noise only stops when you do. Stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means control. The kind of control that scares people. Because when you're still, you're not reacting. You're observing. You're not caught in the chaos. You're studying it. That's when the truth becomes clear. You start to see who's real, who's pretending, what matters, what doesn't. The silence gives you perspective the noise could never offer. That's why those who control the world fear quiet minds. Quiet minds are dangerous. They can't be manipulated. You know what's ironic? The ones who move the most are often going nowhere. They mistake activity for progress, and they can't tell the difference. But the ones who pause, who take a breath, who dare to sit in the discomfort of stillness, they're the ones who rise above it. Because stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time. It's strategy. It's restraint. It's power disguised as peace. They'll mock you for slowing down. They'll say you're falling behind. They'll call you lazy, unfocused, unmotivated. But that's only because they can't stand to see someone who isn't caught in the same trap. Your calm makes their chaos louder. Your patience exposes their panic. When you stop running, they start to question why they're still sprinting. And they don't like the answer. Because deep down, they know they're not running toward something. They're running away from themselves. The world's addicted to movement because it's terrified of reflection. Reflection shows cracks. Reflection shows lies. Reflection shows the truth about how hollow most of this noise really is. That's why silence is treated like a threat. They'll do anything to fill it. Music, scrolling, talking, anything to drown out that inner voice that keeps asking, is this really it? Because once that question gets too loud, everything starts to unravel. The job, the friends, the habits, the identity, it all starts to look fake. And you can't unhear that kind of truth. Stillness is rebellion. In a world built on distraction, calm is chaos. Because when you stop reacting, you start deciding. You start choosing what deserves your energy instead of handing it away for free. You stop being controlled by urgency, comparison, and fear. You start realizing how much of your life was spent trying to prove something to people who weren't even watching. Stillness gives you that clarity. It shows you the difference between movement and progress, between noise and purpose. Most people won't understand that kind of peace. They'll call it detachment, arrogance, indifference. But that's because they've confused chaos with passion. They think being loud means being alive. They think slowing down means giving up. But when you've been trapped in noise long enough, silence starts to sound like freedom. That's when you start hearing things others can't. The truth, the patterns, the whispers of purpose under all the static. And that's when everything changes. Stillness is where strength hides. It's not the flash, not the noise, not the show. It's quiet, controlled, focused. It's the space between reactions where clarity lives. The world will try to pull you back into motion, tempt you with distractions, bait you with urgency. But once you've tasted peace, noise becomes unbearable. Once you've learned how to stand still in a storm, you stop fearing the thunder. Because you realize You were never supposed to move with the chaos. You were meant to stand in the middle of it and see everything for what it really is.